It's Do Time with Pastor Steph.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Rise and shine. You are on with It's Do Time with Pastor Steph. How are you doing this morning? Wait, what does Pastor Steph do? That's great to hear. That's great to hear. For this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Yes, it's your girl Shontyce. I'm here with you guys this morning. I hope you're here up early, rejuvenated from last night. Were y'all on with us last night? Last night was amazing. Pastor Steph, Brother Ainsley, and myself, we came back after a long hiatus with My 2 Cents, our TV and movie review live show right here on Coach for Christian Life Facebook page, as well as our YouTube, a Closer Walk Media Network channel. And it was hilarious. We played our rapid fire game. We had our contestants. We had a nice amount of contestants. This was part 2 of rapid fire. It was amazing. So each contestant had to choose their favorite throwback movie or sitcom. And what did we do last night? We quizzed contestants on Lean On Me, on Purple Rain, on the Wayans Brothers, on Scary Movie, on House Party. It was hilarious. We also had the contestants give us nominations because God spares later on this year. We will be having our My 2 Cents Awards, where we will be showing recognition and highlighting those minority actors, Black, Indian, Asian directors, actors, name them, we're recognizing them, because unfortunately we're not being recognized by mainstream. But it's okay. Who cares? Because God is blessing each of us with the ability and opportunity to collaborate with Him so we can support and honor each other. Amen. So if you missed it, just hit that subscribe button. Make sure you go back to last night and watch it. The entire episode was phenomenal. We do still have our reigning champion for rapid fire. It was Shontyce. She won part 1 and she won part 2 last night. You have to go back so you can also see the prize that she won from part 1. And now she's deserving the prize for part 2. So make sure you go back. Okay, but yesterday on It's Do Time with Pastor Steph, we had our Wow Wednesday with our socially conscious segment brought to us by none other than Vivian herself. And she gave us information on how they plan on cutting child funding. None of us understood how that was supposed to work, because as we see, households are struggling, whether it's a single parent household, both parent household. Sometimes one parent has to quit their job so they can stay home to take care of the child, because Vivian on a previous Socially Conscious reported how college tuition is less expensive than childcare nowadays. Like, can y'all believe that? Y'all know how much college tuition is. That's part of the reason why half of us are not in college. Not because we're not smart, not because we're not disciplined, not because we're not willing to hire our education. It's because we can't afford it, and we're taking out the loans. I know that's why I did not try back for my 4th time in college. I'm not with the loans. No, once I'm done, I want to be done with the schoolwork, done with the payments. And we know that that's not all that possible. What else did Vivian bring us yesterday morning? Oh, the ICE agents, how in the red states where they're Trump supporters, ICE agents are moving very, very different than the blue states where Trump is not supported. How is that working out? I don't know. Do you know? He doesn't even know. But unfortunately, that's what's happening now. And Pastor Steph had to ask us, like, okay, so how do we think this is going to turn out? Me personally, like I said yesterday morning, I feel like he's starting a whole war that he is nowhere near capable forget ready, capable of handling. That one side of the fence is going to be going buck wild on the other side of the fence, and the people who are for him are going to buck and run, and he's just going to be sitting there ashy all by himself. So I don't know, but we have to make sure that we get this all the way wrapped up and together, because you see how Trump is trying to play one side for the other, and now he has these ICE agents who are with it. And as Pastor Steph said, pretty sure they're not being paid peanuts for this buffoonery, but nonetheless. Also, if you missed us yesterday morning, make sure you go back so you can hear all of the news updates that Vivian had to give us on her socially conscious segment yesterday. But yes, it is Shontyce. I am here with you this morning. Pastor Steph is away at a conference, and when she comes back from these conferences, y'all, she comes back with some information, with some revelations from the Lord. So it is very much needed. She is very well deserving of being able to just pick up and move when God needs her to, when God tells her to, when God grants her those opportunities. So we are praying that Pastor Steph got some good rest last night after we got off of my 2 cents. She traveled safely, thank God, praying that she's safely where she is and that she absorbs everything God needs her to absorb. Okay, so make sure you go tell a friend, to text a friend, to call a friend, to DM a friend that is Due Time with Pastor Steph with Shontyce this morning is on. Make sure you go grab that coffee. Make sure you eat first. Grab a muffin, a bagel, some eggs, something. Remember the tip Pastor Steph gave us one morning: do not drink coffee on an empty stomach. And I don't know about y'all, if you don't pay attention to these health tips that Pastor Steph gives in the morning, please do, because I was drinking coffee on an empty stomach with no problem. And it wasn't until she gave that tip and I tried to do it again and got so sick. Now I was fine drinking coffee on an empty stomach until the Lord gave me that tip through Pastor Steph. And now I'm on nauseous and queasy if I ever try it. So make sure if you grab coffee, you grab something to eat as well. Get that healthy breakfast. Again, text a friend, call a friend, DM a friend, let them know that we are on live. And whatever you do, do not go anywhere, because we will be right back.
Cancer is on the rise, but there's one surefire way to fight it, and that's increasing screening rates. You probably heard me talk about a test called the Colo test, and this is a fit test that allows you to screen at home in a non-invasive manner. And the way it works is it detects blood in your stool, which can be one of the earliest signs of colon cancer, and it's for average risk individuals. One of the best things about Colo test is actually how easy it is to use. There's a piece of collection paper, a sampler, and a collection tube with simple instructions to follow. You get your results almost instantly, so when you're done, you simply just wait a few minutes to see the results. No doctor's offices, no waiting rooms, no waiting around, and no excuses. And the best part, it only costs $20. The Colo test is available on Walmart, Amazon, CVS, and Rite Aid.
Are y'all going to get screened for colon cancer? I know it's a little scary. I know, just thinking about being screened. I have to actually make my appointment to see my PCP for the year. And normally I do it at the top of the year. This year has been so busy, a great busy, but so busy nonetheless that I'm like, oh no, I have to make sure I get this done. And, you know, the older you get, sometimes you feel like you don't really have the time to, but we have to make sure we're taking the time to check our physical health. Okay, y'all, it is Therapeutic Thursday. Y'all know what that means. That means we are talking everything health this morning. mental health, emotional health, physical health, and most importantly, spiritual health. Okay, but as the doctor just stated on the PSA, are you paying attention to these PSAs? Because Pastor Steph is very strategic as to which PSAs she stays in tune with God to share with us. But make sure, especially men, some with the men, they don't, check their health as often as they should. But pay attention to your body. Your body speaks to you. It lets you know when something feels off, when something is wrong, when you need to alter something, stop something, pick something up. Okay, so now we can screen the cancer, colon cancer at home. What do y'all think about that? But either way, make sure that you are taking care of your physical health. You are making your doctor's appointments. The older we get, there are certain screenings we have to make sure we start taking that we did not have to concern ourselves with necessarily when we were younger. So let's get up on it. Okay? Let's see who is in the room with us this morning. We have Ketty. Good morning, Ketty. How are you? Thank you so much for being here with us. Remember, y'all, you could be in the room, but you don't know if you're in the room if you're not engaging. And remember yesterday, Pastor Steph and I announced that we are going to be paying extra close. We were already, but extra close to who is viewing and who's engaging. And every 2 weeks, we are offering some free due time merch to our top engager, top engager. So engagement means what, y'all? If you're actually interacting with the conversations throughout the show. Come on, between the introduction, the health tips, the news, the topic, and the way to do time just converses over all the information that's presented. There's more than enough opportunities for you guys to engage. Okay, we have to make sure we're saying good morning, how are you? Hope your morning is starting great. And get in on these, especially the news, because a lot of times we don't even make it to the topic, or we make it to the topic because the news ends up becoming the topic. Oh gosh, we have to make sure that we're participating in these conversations, because it's really important that as Christians we understand the balance in how we can talk about God directly as well as indirectly. We're able to do it, y'all. We're able to do it. Okay, and this is one of the best ways and one of the best platforms we can exorcise those things. Oh, we have Miss Charlene in the room this morning. Good morning, Miss Charlene. Thank you so much for joining us. Praying that your morning is starting off great, and thank you for wanting to start your morning off with little old us, with the Due Time crew and all of the other viewers here, all of the other top engagers. Okay, who we got in the room? Good morning, Pastor KL. With Pastor KL talking about, okay, mail the shirt. Don't be coming on demand. It's too early to be demanding things. My brain is just starting to, the brain cells is just starting to move and flow this morning. But yes, I'm going to see if I can repost the shirt that our top engager, and again, we get the stats every week, but we're going to be paying attention to the stats in a more detailed way. I will be posting that as well, so you can see. Let me see if I can pull that up really quick, since Pastor Kale is all demanding. Hold on. I think I'm able to pull it up. Oh, okay. So here is just one of Due Time apparel items, and Pastor Steph was actually wearing this on the show yesterday morning. So this is what the top engager won, and we had a few who were following right behind. So if you're like number 2 and number 3 on the top engagers list, you get Due Time apparel with the discount. But if you're the top engager, you get it for free. Okay, so this is what Pastor KL is challenging me for right now to censor him. But nonetheless, we are going to get into our health tips. And again, it's Therapeutic Thursday, so we are talking about everything health, mental, emotional, physical, most importantly, spiritual. But this morning, we are highlighting our spiritual health. Okay, we're going to dive into some spiritual health tips. And yes, we have touched on this before. Very important. We cannot talk about any form of health tips enough. Any form. One of the four. You can never talk about it too much. Especially our spiritual health. Because if our spiritual health is not on point, neither is our mental health, neither is our emotional health, neither is our physical health. Spiritual health sits at the top. So I actually wanted to share both definitions because I found it extremely interesting as to how spiritual health is viewed, how it's defined, and which definition we as God's people, God's chosen, need to focus on. Okay, so when you're thinking of spiritual health overall, in general, indirectly to God, it is, wait, let me make sure I'm getting the right one. Okay, so it's an individual's sense of purpose, their sense of meaning, and their sense of a connection to something greater than themselves. And this often includes their beliefs, their values, and their ethics. And now we know that when we speak in the world, we get higher being, the universe, something higher than ourselves. These are all of the terms that are used. Okay, so your values and your ethics, your inner peace, your mindfulness, and right now it's given, just straight meditation. And meditation is what, y'all? That's when you just sit and you try to clear your mind of any and everything. And I always thought that was a little like, so if I'm sitting here and I'm clearing my mind from any and everything, what am I focusing on? That's just me. That's just where my mind goes. Like, I understand, we have to clear our minds, but you have to be able to focus on something, right? I mean, am I the only one who thinks like that? Good morning, Lady Tamika. How are you? Praying that we'll be able to speak to you soon. Hey, good morning, Diallo. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you. So yes, meditation. My mind says there's something we got to be focused on. So I'm sitting here and I'm meditating. I'm clearing my mind of any and everything. That just makes me think of be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. So if your brain is blank, guess who's going to try to fill it? So if he sees that your mind, now he can't access your mind, oh Lord. But if he sees that you sitting there looking empty, oh, that's just the ability for him to come and slither his way in and try to fill it. Okay. Now, when we talk about what is spiritual health in God, and every definition, I don't care the word, I don't care the term, I don't care the phrase, we need to be focusing on God's definition, the biblical definition, because we're living in the world, but who still controls the world? How are we as Christians supposed to properly operate in the world? We can't properly operate in the world if we're of the world. So spiritual health is your relationship with God and you living in alignment with his will for your life. That's spiritual health. So I am spiritually healthy when I am ensuring that I'm doing my part in keeping my relationship with God on point. God does all of the amazing and powerful and magnificent things he does. And I have my role. We have our roles, you know, because if we move far away from God, it's not because he moved, it's because we moved. All right. So as long as I'm keeping that strong connection with God, and as long as I am living according to what he has for Shontyce, then I am spiritually healthy. I immediately become spiritually unhealthy the second I take my eye off Jesus, which is what we prayed about on the Word Prayer Project on Sunday, right here on the same channel and page. When I start moving away, I want to move. So I know God is like, go right. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to go left real quick. Spiritually unhealthy. Okay, so we're going to dive into a couple of tips as to how to live a spiritually healthy life, how to have a spiritually healthy lifestyle that encompasses our body, mind, and soul. Okay, so again, first and foremost, your relationship with God, essential aspect of spiritual health. It is cultivating a personal relationship with God, and that takes place during your conversations with God, aka prayer, your worship time with God, and your studying time with God, spending time in God's word. And I had someone low-key challenge me yesterday, not disrespectfully, but really challenge God, really, when it comes to his word. And the challenge was the Bible that we have accessible to us today is not the original manuscript. There was an original manuscript, but whomever came along and they rewrote it, they modified it, and now we have what we have today. And I said, okay. But because God ensures that I spend time with him, because I possess the Holy Spirit upon baptism in the name of Jesus. Why do people say I caught the Holy Spirit? That's a whole other time. That just came to mind. One has to go with the other. So what does it say here? Relationship with God is not only prayer, it's not only studying his written word, but y'all know Jesus is the living word too, right? Okay, so when you're cultivating your relationship with God, you have to hit all four corners. You have to have your own relationship with God, be around like-minded people with your fellowship, attending church, read and study your Bible, and minister, meaning applying God's word. That's in all four corners, okay? When you miss any of those four corners, spiritual health starts declining. All right. So to address the challenge that was presented to me last night in regards to, well, there was an original manuscript, which is not the manuscript that we have now. And I said, well, that's funny, because when I read the manuscript that's provided to me now, I get confirmation in what God says to me. If my interpretation is off, I get corrected. The Holy Spirit corrects me, which is part of his job. Bring the thing back to your remembrance, petitioning on your behalf, confirming and correcting. I started reading something the other night, and as soon as I started reading the first verse, Holy Spirit put me onto something that someone's been saying to me. And every time they say it, I'm like, okay. But as soon as I started reading it, if I didn't have my own relationship with God, I'd just be reading words. That's why a lot of these people who read the Bible, it's just like, okay. All right, y'all, come on. We gotta get this together. All right. Building your spiritual health, relationship with God, alignment with God's will. Spiritual health involves seeking to understand and live according to God's commands and principles. In the Bible, one of the words that's used is precepts. Precepts are rules and regulations. Now, God is not a being who just sits there and says, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, don't do this. Which is why a lot of people claim they don't do God and they don't do church. It's like, it's just a bunch of rules. If you pay attention to the things that God says we should not do. It's things that are hazardous to our mental, emotional, physical, and or spiritual. But we want to fight against him to engage in things that are harmful for our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. When you let God break it down to you like that, sound real asinine, right? Can I say that word on here? I think I can. Sometimes words just coming out my mouth. I gotta Google them to make sure I'm using it properly and all of that. But yeah, you sound real remedial. That's what I always use. You sound crazy when you're fighting your father, who God should be your father, not the devil. Or when you're not living righteous, the devil is your father. The Bible says that. That's not from Shontyce. When you're fighting your heavenly father and you're mad at him because he won't let you do things that will be self-destructive, that will kill, steal, and destroy you, because that's the devil's goal. So he's like, I don't want you doing this, I don't need you doing that, because I need you doing this and I need you doing that, so that you can not only live, but live in abundance, meaning living a whole, full life. Like you're not just breathing, but you're actually living with purpose, and you're enjoying life, and you're being blessed, and you're seeing and receiving the blessings. And when you go through trials and tribulations, because you are going to go through trials and tribulations, you're going to see the difference between you and people who don't focus on God, because you handle them better. But when you do not live according to God's commands in general, and God's commands for you specifically and personally, you jack yourself up, and your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health starts to come. So the choice is yours, okay? But that's the second tip on how to build your spiritual health. Tip 3, spiritual growth. This includes actively seeking to grow in faith, wisdom, and understanding of God's ways. So making yourself teachable. That was a topic, a prayer topic on the Word Prayer Project. I'm going to say a few months ago. Making sure you're teachable. That's big. Humility. You don't know everything. You know a lot less than what you think you do. And it's not just you, it's all of us. That's why we need God. Next tip, living a godly life. Spiritual health manifests in one's actions, in your attitudes, your interactions with others, reflecting God's love and grace. And this is something that sometimes I challenge with. The struggle is real, because the streets we live in nowadays do not call for us to live a godly life. It does not call for godly responses in the natural. This is why we can't see and hear and speak and move and decide and desire and intend and plan in the natural, because you will stay living an ungodly life, meaning your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health will start declining, because the way you respond is not of God. The way you desire won't be of God. The outlook you have, the perspective, won't be of God. The way you hear, most of us don't put our listening ears on. Hello, we don't listen. Don't listen through God. So you're not living a godly life. So if you want to continue to build your spiritual health, you will respond godly. You will, oh my gosh, the responses. You will think, hear, speak godly. Next tip, overcoming spiritual weakness. Ooh. Spiritual health is also about developing strength to resist temptation and overcome spiritual challenges. Okay, y'all. Let me read that one more time. This is actually the last tip that we're going to mention for the spiritual health. Spiritual health is also about developing strength to resist temptation and overcome spiritual challenges. I was led to read, I believe it's Matthew 4, with Jesus being tempted when he went 40 days and 40 nights without food. This was after baptism, and the Spirit led him up to the wilderness to be tempted by the devil, and he went without food for 40 days and 40 nights. And then the devil came and tempted him 3 times. And the word God had me focus on was wilderness. Y'all watch this show faithfully, all of our faithful viewers and top fans and engagers. Y'all know how God has me with definitions. He had me focus on the word wilderness. And the wilderness is a place God will take you to test you so that he can refine you and your character. And there's a certain temptation that peeks his head every now and again. God does not tempt us. It says that in the book of James. He does not tempt us. We tempt ourselves. This is how the enemy this is how the enemy is able to tempt us, because he sees what we do to ourselves and he plays on it. This is why we can't. Yes, he's very powerful and we can never combat the enemy on our own. We can only stand up toe to toe with him, holding Jesus's hand, for real. Like, all jokes aside, like we can't. We're no match for the enemy. He is the prince of this world. That's biblical. We cannot combat him on our own. With God and with Jesus, absolutely. However, with that being said, he does not have as much power and access to us as the Lord. He couldn't, because then that would make him equal to God. He does not have access to our mind. He cannot read our minds. He cannot force us to do anything. He can heavily influence us. So this is why we have to be very careful about what we display, what we say, because that's how he studies us. He studies our movements, the decisions that we make, the things that we say. This is what he does. Okay? So we have to make sure that we're not displaying these things, because that's what he plays on. And when God takes you to that wilderness, that time to be tested, because he needs you to show yourself, of course him, to show yourself and show the devil, I'm not with that anymore. That's God refining you. That's God teaching you how to grow thicker skin, so that you can overcome those temptations and those spiritual challenges. Otherwise, and I kept saying, why do I keep failing consistently or periodically? I get tested with this. I get this temptation today. I overcome it. But that temptation peek its ugly head again next week. I'm failing. You have to be willing to go in the wilderness with the Holy Spirit, so that you can do your part in combating the test and overcoming the test, and overcoming the passing God's test, but overcoming the temptation. So really quick, we're going to go over these spiritual health tips to build your spiritual health, your relationship with God. Build your relationship with God. Make sure you're living in alignment, okay, to God's will for your life. Make sure you are doing things that will help grow you spiritually. Living a godly life and overcoming spiritual weaknesses. Okay, so those are the 5 tips that are highlighted this morning. Okay, if you did it, write it down, take some notes. Make heavy on to take the notes. Heavy on to take the notes, because we have to make sure we go back. We have Ketty, who takes notes of every single thing, and there are times we need to backtrack and go back, and she's able to tell us what was said, the tips that were given, the verses that were highlighted. Those things are important to be able to go back to. Okay, all right, so let's get into our news, y'all. I did come across some interesting news, and oh my goodness, really quick before we go, we have a check-in from our girl Vivian. Good morning. How are you? Looking forward to speaking with you in a few after we go over these news updates. All right, so hold on, guys. I'm sorry. Let me be able to pull this up really quickly. All right, so we have a man sentenced, this was the caption. Man sentenced to 25 years to life in Queens subway hammer attack. It's not funny. The attack actually took place back in February of 2022. I had no idea. Back in February of 2022, we are in 25, so 3 years ago. But y'all have to listen to this, y'all have to listen to this. So you have 61-year-old William Blount, and he was acquitted of attempted murder, but found guilty of first-degree assault, first-degree robbery, and fourth-degree criminal possession of a weapon. And the trial took place back in April. Okay, so he was convicted of attacking a city employee, so 57-year-old Nina Rothschild. So that's a lady here in the photo. She worked for the city as a health researcher, and he attacked her with a hammer at a Queens subway station. And guess how long he got, y'all? 25 years to life. Which is crazy, right? Because you got acquitted of murder, but the other charges, but okay. So the victim, Ms. Rothschild, she was walking into a subway station. I think it was Queens Plaza subway station, and that's located in Long Island City out in Queens. And Blount, 61, Blount approached her from behind and kicked her down the stairs. Okay, hold on, wait. I think I was able to pull up, because they did have something. He kicked her down the stairs after he walked up behind her. And after he kicked her, he struck her in the head 13 times with the hammer, then grabbed her tote bag and ran about the train station. So she was already walking with a cane before he attacked her. So the attack, of course, had its nasty effects, and she was hospitalized with several skull fractures and with a broken finger and a few other injuries. And she had to have emergency surgery done to replace some of the damaged parts of her skull. So as you can see, this was the photo that they were able to obtain of him walking. Now, imagine being kicked. Y'all know subway stairs. They're different. Subway stairs are different. Some of them are extra steep, but they're all hard, of course, because they're cement. So you're 57 years old. You're already walking with the cane, and someone just randomly comes up behind you and kicks you down the stairs. So you and your cane go tumbling down the stairs, okay? So the prosecutors were able to bring up actually a handful of prior convictions that this 61-year-old man has, and it took course over decades. Okay, so violent felony offenses, which included kidnapping, robbery, and attempted robbery. So again, this goes back to Pastor Steph always asking, how do these people get off? Now, the victim was able to address the 61-year-old violator during the trial, and she said, wait, I want to read the quote, "My rhetorical question is to Mr. Blount. I do not expect an answer, but I have often imagined asking this question and will take advantage of the opportunity. My question is, what were you thinking on the night of February 24th, 2022? If confronted with someone with a hammer, most people would give up their bags. Why on earth did you come up behind me, fracture my skull multiple times with a hammer, then grab my bag? I'm not a lawyer, but I'm quite certain that you would have faced a lesser punishment if you had simply robbed me than you now have vigorously assaulted me," end quote. So that's what she was able to ask him. I guess the time where the judge asked the victim, would you like to say anything? And she did say that she takes the subway to work still every day, and she takes the bus home post skull surgery. And she says, quote, I do think about this, I'm sorry. It crosses my mind at least once per day, every day. And she still takes the bus. Post Skull surgery. Well, all right. Uh, things that make you go, Okay, so now this man is doing 25 years to life because you decided, as she stated, why wouldn't you just come up in front of me and say, give me a bag? I'm 57 when it came. More than likely, I would have given it to you. I don't know. Okay, so I also came across another really heart-wrenching story. So you have 4 teens have been arrested after a big fight took place in the Bronx in a park, and it ended with a 14-year-old being stabbed to death. And this was, reading this, I was just like, wow. Okay, so you have 18-year-old Andrew Ansa, 18-year-old Jordan Williams, an unnamed 16-year-old, and an unnamed 15-year-old who have been charged with murder, manslaughter, gang assault, and criminal possession of a weapon because 14-year-old Angel Mendoza was killed. And this took place on Tuesday after a huge fight in a Bronx park. So unfortunately, 14-year-old Angel here died, and there was another teen who was wounded. Now, Angel's father said that his son went to the park, what they gave the name of the park, Williamsbridge Oval Park. So those of you who are familiar with the Bronx, who are from or in the New York City area, Williamsbridge Oval Park, at about 6 in the evening. He went outside. His mother made dinner, and he told them he was going to go to the park. He'll see them later. And his father says that's the last time he saw him alive. Told his parents that he was going to go to the park with some friends, but a big dispute, argument, something broke out over there between 2 different groups. So I guess that's how they were able to charge those 4 teens with gang assault, because it must have been 2 rival gangs going at it. It started off as a really heated verbal interaction, and then it quickly turned into a fight. And they said that the fight lasted about 15 minutes. Now, those who know fighting, that's a long time. 15 minutes is a long time in fight years. You know how long 15 minutes is? You know how long that's throwing hands, dipping, dodging, ducking, looking for somebody, jumping somebody. That's a long time. That's a long time. So the officers are saying that they found Angel on the ground with stab wounds to his abdomen area, and he was rushed to Jacoby Medical Center, and he was in critical condition, but shortly after that, he did pass away. There was another teen, a 17-year-old, who was stabbed in the abdomen as well as in the shoulder, but he was able to get himself to Montefiore Hospital, and he is listed in stable condition. So thank God he did not pass, but that's crazy. He was able to get himself there. And the other teen, Angel, had to die. Well, not had to die, but he died. They have some information that the officers were able to obtain from investigation. They're saying, police are saying that they recovered a knife and a gun not far from where a memorial of candles were. I know y'all were running. I know these gangs ended up running when Angel fell to the ground, when the 17-year-old, who was also wounded, fell to the ground, and y'all didn't go further than where they would put the memorial candles. They don't ever put the memorial candles away from the scene. So you dropped the weapon on the scene. Good job. Good job. All right. So Angel's father said that just last month he had a conversation with him about being careful when it comes to who he spends time with. And he says, quote, when my wife called saying they had stabbed my child, I went crazy. I went to a few hospitals, but he wasn't there. I don't know who did it, but I want justice. And they were able to speak to a friend of Angel's. And he says that Angel invited him to go to the park. But he said, nah, I can't. My mom isn't going to let me go. And he woke up the next morning and his parents told him what happened and he didn't believe it. He said that didn't happen. He was a good kid and he was always laughing. So that didn't happen. And reading that just reminded me of my mother. And there were times I would ask to go somewhere and she just like a lot of the times she would say yes. Then some of the times like I couldn't ask her today if I could go somewhere in October because that was just too close of a notice for her. She's like, I can't, so much pressure, stop rushing me. And I'm like, what? We're in August. I'm asking about something in September, but it was too much. It was too much pressure for her. And then there were those few times she just straight up be like, no, you're not going. And of course, as a teenager, you're mad. Like, why can't I go? But parent intuition. Sometimes there's no straight out reason as to why they say no. They just say no because of a feeling that they have, or they just want you to stay in the house. And thank God, who's to say that if he had not gone to the park, he would have either witnessed Angel dying right in front of him, or God forbid, would have been another one of the teens who were wounded. Unfortunately, you can't say. So prayers to the family. Just senseless. Everybody's just out here doing what they want to do. Nobody's focusing on how it affects these innocent bystanders and their family. Okay, I came across something very interesting, and when I first saw it, I bypassed it, and something just said go back, and I'm happy that I did because. All right, so there's a disease out now. So Vivian brought up the hand, foot, and mouth. Am I saying it correctly? Vivian will correct me when she comes on. And now there's something, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. Legionnaire's disease. Okay. I'm seeing something in the background that's saying yes. All right, I'm big on pronunciation and definitions, so I have to make sure I get this right. All right, Legionnaire's disease. And there's a spread of it in the New York City area. And the doctors have been making it their business to expose what it is, what the cause of it is, so on and so forth. So, Legionnaires, it doesn't spread from person to person from drinking water, but it's inhaled. Y'all gotta pay attention to this, right? Because I had to read this a couple of times, and it was kind of blow mind for me because it made someone come to mind. All right, so this Legionnaire's disease is caused by a bacteria, and the bacteria is known as Legionella pneumophila. This is why school is important. Thank God I passed English. Legionella pneumophila, I'm sorry. And the officials are saying that it's an outbreak that's traced back to 11 buildings in central Harlem with contaminated cooling towers. So do y'all understand what that means? All right, so this Legionnaire's disease is a bacteria that we inhale from cooling systems, from air conditioning systems, from these big establishments, these huge buildings. If they do not tend to these cooling units properly, it releases this bacteria that we then inhale and now contaminates our body. This is scary. It doesn't happen with us with the smaller AC units in your home, in your apartments. With these big buildings, these schools, yeah. So there's a doctor by the name of Dr. Glatt, and he explains, I'm going to read his quote verbatim. These large air conditioning systems, they sometimes can have Legionella growing inside of them. There is a special maintenance that each of these facilities uses and does on a regular basis to prevent the colonization of their water systems with Legionella. But sometimes, even despite the best maintenance, this can still be a problem. For most people, it isn't a problem. It's only these large systems where they have special cooling with water as part of the centralized air conditioning system. So a person with their own private system, they're good. And usually it's not a problem even in the large systems because they're maintained properly. But as he just said, even with the maintenance being done properly, You don't have to be negligent in order for this to still happen. So it's the cooling systems that has the water that helps to maintain it. I guess that's why with us, with the smaller ones in our homes and apartments, it doesn't bother us. So there's this disease outbreak in NYC, and they're now blamed for a few deaths, and it's continuing to spread. At least 64 others have gotten sick since the outbreak was first reported back in July of this year, so just last month. And they're saying that the doctors are saying anyone can be diagnosed with the disease, and there are some people who are more at risk. Unfortunately, they're saying there's nothing that you can do to prevent breathing it in once you breathe it in. Most people don't get it. And they're saying, fortunately, most people who do get it, wait, I'm sorry. Did they just say so? However, fortunately, most people don't get it, and most people do get it, and they do get extremely sick from it. Now, they do say some people are at higher risk, those who have underlying lung diseases, those who suffer from COPD. You're more likely to suffer from this. The symptoms, now here's what had my antennas like. Ooh, the symptoms are pneumonia-like symptoms. And there was just a child who was diagnosed with pneumonia. And the first thing I thought was, what are you doing as a child with pneumonia in the summertime? Well, this child goes to camp in a school. Things that make you go, So, stay out of Harlem. I don't know, y'all. If we never thank God for the air that we breathe, we need to make sure that we do, because you can treat it. Look out for flu-like symptoms. The top 2 symptoms they say to look out for is shortness of breath and coughing. Okay, so of course, with this, you have to take antibiotics. If you do have, again, listen to your body, pay attention to your body, go to the doctor. I hate sitting in the emergency room, but guess what? It becomes my best friend when I don't know what's going on. Okay, so we have to make sure we're paying attention. All right, we have an update, y'all. We have an update. Now, I believe Pastor Steph or Vivian, I think it was Pastor Steph, she gave the news story on Shane Tamura. That was the one who just drove from Vegas to New York City to shoot it up. Y'all remember that? Not that long ago. What was that, a couple of weeks ago? Drove from one state to the next to shoot it up. 1 second, let me get my bearings together here because the updates, and I want to read the caption because the caption was very, very interesting. NYC office gunman involved in prior altercations with police, video and 911 calls revealed. So, Mr. Shane Tamura, 27-year-old Shane Tamura. Who remembers the story? Because I really wanted to make sure I was getting the everything, not just the update, but the update was I can't really focus on anything other. Okay, so 27-year-old Shane Tamura. So again, he was the gunman. So he was able to still maintain an active concealed carry permit in Nevada. And this was despite prior interactions with police and at least 2 911 calls from his mother about him being suicidal and having suicidal thoughts. Haven't we been talking about how these people are still able to do these things, have these things, despite the red flags. Like, they be flagging. The red flags be flagging. I don't know what be going on. So there was a Vegas incident back in 2023. Police were called to Red Rock Casino, where Mr. Shane here, he won thousands of dollars, but while he was trying to collect his cash, he refused to show his ID and give his name. Now, anyone who knows anything about going to the casino, now he just got in trouble for that. Well, he didn't get in trouble for not wanting to show his ID or give his name. He got locked up when he went to go collect his winnings. Such a winner. When you win at a casino and you go to collect your money, what makes you think that you are not going to have to divulge your information? Give your ID, state your name. You think anybody can just walk up to the counter and be like, yo, hand me 3,000, 3 stacks, 3 racks, whatever verbiage you use, because you're not speaking on intellectually and you don't want to offer up any identification. As they ask in the streets, where they do that at? Where do you think you can go gambling wise? You can't even go to the illegal spot. You may not have to show ID, but you gotta give some type of information up. You go to the number hole, you go here, you go. Anybody can walk up and talk about, I won, you owe me money. So because he refused to give his name and identification and he wanted his winnings, the police had to be called to the hospital. And video shows him being taken into the security room where he allegedly grabbed a security officer. Meanwhile, he's still able to maintain this license to carry this concealed weapon, right? Okay. Videos also showed Mr. Shane refusing to leave the property of the casino despite what happened. Then he got arrested for trespassing, but you were still able to maintain this license to hold the concealed weapon. When he was asked why he didn't have to leave, when he was asked why he didn't leave the casino, his response was, quote, I just have to make rent, dude. They took like six grand from me, end quote. So now it's the casino's fault that you need to make your rent up. But you were still allowed to keep this license to keep your concealed weapon. There were 911 calls. Back in August of last year, 2024, there was a 911 call involving his mother. She told the 911 operator that he was threatening to hurt himself. She told them no, he was just crying and said, I'm not going to be able to go any further. But he was still able to keep this license to carry this concealed weapon. He told the cops that the gun was there with him, when the police showed on scene for the suicidal 911 call that his mother made. His mother also told dispatcher that he was diagnosed with bipolar, depression, and anxiety, and he works nights and takes meds to sleep. And then she stated that she told the dispatcher that he had a CCW permit and carried a gun in his backpack. So even with the mother telling them, my son is suicidal, he said he don't think he can go any further. He is diagnosed with bipolar, depression, and anxiety, and he works night, but he needs meds in order to sleep. He was still allowed to keep this license to carry this concealed weapon. That was just 2 of the 911 calls. There was another 911 call. So it's saying that Mr. Shane played football in high school, but he never played for the NFL. However, in a suicide note that he wrote, he blames the league for his alleged injuries to his brain. Now, I thought that I just read he played in high school and not in NFL. Isn't NFL the league? High school isn't the league, right? Okay. So you blame the league that you didn't play in for your head injury. But you were still able to keep this license to keep this weapon. Where's the due time crew? Because I can't. Where's Lady Tamika? Good morning, Lady Tamika.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. I'm trying a different angle. I'm hoping that everybody can see me because I've been kind of a little dark lately and I don't understand why.
Dark, and we're normally used to seeing your side profile.
I know.
It's a little refreshing to be able to see you face to face, like front wise. You look amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, Lady Tamika, you have this man sentenced to 25 years to life because he decided to walk up behind this 57-year-old woman with her cane. And instead of just walking up to her with the hammer and saying, "Give me your tote bag," he kicks her down the subway stairs, beats her in the head with the hammer 13 times, then takes her tote bag. And one of the articles I read, it said he had the cane. So I don't know who had the cane. One article says she had the cane. Or I really hope it was bad enough he was already 61. I really hope you're not a 61-year-old man walking with a cane and a hammer, and you got the nerve to kick somebody down the steps, steal a bag, and then run. What you doing running with the cane? I don't see all these things. I don't know. But she says even after her being kicked down the stairs, having skull injuries, needing surgery, emergency surgery because of her fractured skull and having a broken finger, she still takes the subway every day to work.
She's extremely bold, and, I've heard people say that's what New Yorkers do. However, let me tell you something. None of that has ever happened to me. I've never been kicked down the stairs. I've never been hit in the head with a hammer. I've never even been caught by the element of surprise to that degree. But any one of those would have been, I would, okay, all right, you got it. You can have my purse. You don't have to do all of that, and just the whole idea, 13 times, you meant to take her out. That's not, okay, I'm just going to lightly, no, you meant to take her out. The element of surprise by itself, with or without a cane, will automatically get me. I didn't see you coming. You come up from behind. Then to kick me down the stairs, just walking in front of me with the hammer, I would have been, okay, I'm going to fight you with a hammer, a broken finger, and multiple, injuries to her body, not, in addition to her mindset. Every time you see somebody, you see, from what I can see, she looked like she was white. Every time you see a black male, it might, trigger, and now, although we as New Yorkers who travel the trains, we're always observant, but when something happens to you, it triggers anything. At any moment, you're looking behind you, somebody just New Yorkers tap each other. That's what we do. You don't move, you move too slow to the left, you might get shouldered. Now at this point, she's paranoid. My heart goes out to her, and that's really extremely brave to continue to do what you need to do. Man, I guess her thing is, I got to make it there. I would take an Uber. Listen, I'd have to get 2 jobs because I need an Uber to get to work. I'm not taking this subway.
And she probably could, Lady Tamika, afford an Uber because she is a Department of Health researcher. She works for the city, so she may make some pretty good ducats. But I don't know how traumatized you are when you still taking the train. Listen, I see things a whole lot less on the train, and I don't, call me bougie, whatever you want. I don't do the subway for things that I just saw, not even because something happened to me. There is no way. I don't think. But let's ask our girl Vivian what she thinks about if she's really traumatized. Good morning, Vivian.
Good morning. How are you, ladies?
Great. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Great. Now, Vivian, You're 57 years old. You mind your business, going home after a hard day's work, probably. And you just feel somebody put the bottom of their foot and kick you down the subway stairs. You feel something bang you in your head 13 times. You open your eyes, your tote bag is gone. Do you still take the train to work and home from work every day?
Yes. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Because several things came to my mind. One, I remember when our resident MTA conductor got into some altercation and was on workers' comp. He kept telling me how the therapist or whomever, I don't know, exactly what category they were in,
Mm-hmm.
kept encouraging him, take your time, but you need to get back on the train. You need to be back around people, because if you continue to sit in this level of fear, then how are you going to return to work? In his case, how are you going
Mm-hmm.
to return back to work? So I understood that part. For me, when I got into my car accident and I was speaking to, I think it was a psychologist or psychiatrist, I don't remember. But they kept asking me, like, how do you feel when you drive? Are you scared? Or da 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 da. I'm like, I'm still nervous, but I have to get behind the wheel. Like, I'm not gonna allow that situation to now keep me in such fear that I'm too scared to go back driving. So, like, they were kind of surprised. They're like, oh, when we speak to other people, they're just talking about how scared they are and that they're, they're so frightened that they freeze and this, that, and the third. So it's good to hear that you're not in that mindset and that you're taking better precautions and things like that. So yes, I understand how she's able to say in court in front of this person who attacked me, like, yeah, you did this to me. It was tragic. It was uncalled for. Like, why did you have to do that? But just so like, you don't have the victory over me. I'm still on the train every day. I'm still going to work. I'm not allowing this situation to have me paralyzed in fear. So I completely understand it.
Wow. Amen.
No, I get it. That makes sense. That's the first thing they tell you whenever you have an accident, especially in a car. That's the first thing they tell you. Get back out there. Don't stay at home, because it will present fear every time you get in the car. But I never thought about it with the subway. A lot of us, whether we're aware of it or not, we really are traumatized by things we hear, things we see, things that nothing. I have never had any incidents happen to me on the train, personal. I've seen things afar off. I've seen fights. I've heard of people, having issues. And even as a person who takes a train, I honestly, to be honest, because I'm a walker, I have that to my benefit. And every place that I have to go, for the most part, I can walk. So I've gotten to the point now, ever since the pandemic, I walk it, and when I tell you I'm walking miles, I'll do that because I don't want to ride the train, and not because anything has happened to me. And so she's right.
I agree with the overall, because like Vivian, I've been in a car accident as well, and I didn't really hesitate to start driving again either. But for me, there's just a difference between certain incidents. Like, it was one thing for me to get back behind the wheel. It's another thing for me to get back on a train where I have a lot less control over what's going on. I'm not driving the train. I'm not opening and closing the doors. I'm not dictating who gets to get on the train. I'm not. I don't know. Is Pastor KL on? Pastor KL, are you on? Okay, say good morning. Pastor KL.
Good morning, ladies. How are you?
Good morning,
Great, thank
Randy. How are you?
you.
I'm well, thank you.
Good. Now, Pastor KL, you mind your business, walking home, going home, and someone attacks you to this magnitude on the train. Well, before you get on the train, but in the subway. What's your outlook on all of this? And from the not from the attacker standpoint, but just as a man, period. Because you had a man who just attacked this woman. They're both pretty much elderly. They weren't, too far apart in age. But what's your
Well, I mean, first of all, I think that's horrible. I don't think that he had to do all of that to get $5. I'd be mad. I bust upside your head 13 times, and you ain't got nothing in your bag but a food stamp card. Now I don't even know the PIN number. You know what I'm saying? So now I'm going to jail, 25 years to life. I couldn't even get the loaf of bread because I didn't know the PIN number. I mean, was that all worth it? I'd be kind of mad. That's ridiculous. As far as would I get back on the train again? So let me say this. At my age now, no. If I was young, perhaps I'd bounce back. But at my age now, first of all, I don't want to be on the train at my age now. Now that I have to dodge bullets and hammers and all that stuff, saying there's a possibility that it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. No, I don't want all that. And it brings me back. I was 27 years old. I was in a really bad car accident. They tell me that when the EMS came to get me, I was sitting outside my car, and the front of my car was in the back of my car. It left me in a coma for 4 months. I was so bad that, and what people don't realize, when you're in a coma, you hear everything that's going around you. You just can't respond to it. It got so bad that I heard the doctors tell my mother, we need to call in the family because at some point we need to pull the plug. Because even if he survives this thing, he's going to be a vegetable. You know what I mean? So it's kind of scary. Thank God. God is who He is. Because I was in my coma saying, if y'all Negroes don't wake me up, so I can say something. Do I have a vote? But I thank God we ain't pull the plug. But at my age, I'm not getting back on. I'm not getting on a plane, train, or elevator. I'm not. I'm not leaving the house. My children are going to come and bring me groceries. You know what I mean? I don't need to go outside. I've seen outside for a lot of years. I'm not impressed anymore.
Should I see outside? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know. Viewers, please let us know. Put in the chat. Would you still take the train after being attacked like this? After almost facing death, needing emergency surgery to repair parts of your fractured skull, it said, having to put mesh there, a broken finger. Let's not forget about the broken finger. And would you still be taking the train to and from work, your aunt's house, wherever? I don't know. Okay, so we have 14-year-old Angel who was fatally stabbed during a gang fight, pretty much. That's what it was. During a gang fight out in the Bronx. His father had just told him last month, be careful who you hang with. So he goes out to this park, tells his parents, I'll see y'all later, I'll be back. Goes out to the park, and these other two gangs get into a fight. He gets stabbed in the abdomen, and as soon as he's rushed to the hospital, he passes away shortly after. One of his friends said that Angel invited him to the park, but he told him, nah, my mother's not gonna let me go. So he wasn't there, but he woke up the next morning with, hearing the news about this. Vivian, what we say, every time we turn around, it's just senseless act of these kids just bugging out. And it always, most of the time, the one who ends up getting wounded or passes didn't have anything to do with the initial interaction.
I mean, I think it was Miss Stephanie who said, or just like the seasoned people in general always say, when you outside, you need to have a plan. Because how old was he? 16?
He was 14.
14. What 14-year-old we know these days going to the park to play on a swing and slides? So you outside hanging with these people, and now there's some gang attack and you wind up dying. That's why when they say you are who you hang out with, birds of a feather flock together, I don't fight that no more. You know, when we were younger, we used to be like, no, that's not true, da 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 da. But no, it is true. Because if they looking for this one and you in that crowd, you're victim to whatever this person is victim to as well. So yeah, that advice from his father to watch who you hang out with, that's real. Like, kids really need to understand that. They really need to understand that. You need to watch what company you keep. It's in the Bible. Watch what company you keep. Bad company corrupts good morals. Like, you really have to watch the people you keep around you. Because had he been around better people, had he stayed at home, he would be alive today. It's very unfortunate to hear 14 years old and now he's gone. Now they're burying their 14-year-old because of a senseless crime. It's very sad.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, wait, I think we have Brother Al on. Is Brother Al on this morning with us? Hold on. Let's see if we can have. Good morning, Brother Al. You're muted if you're trying to speak.
Good morning. How are you?
Why are you whispering?
Good morning. How are you?
Are you sneaking? Are you sneaking on with that?
Yeah. That's part of it.
Okay. So we'll come back to you. Pastor KL, what are your thoughts on this? Every time you turn around, and like Vivian just said, you know, you're saying that you want to, but who's really going to the park?
Right. First of all, you know, Brother Al came on like he was a runaway slave, and he didn't want nobody to see him talking. but yeah, you know, back in my days, you know, we went to the park and we stayed in the park until the night lights came on. You know, no one's. I'm with Vivian. No one is going to the park right now. You know, they're staying in their house. They're playing video games. I mean, if you're going to the park, you're going to a park for a reason. It's not to play. You know what I mean? You're going in there for some mischief. You know, to hang out to get up with some people who can't come to the house to pick you up. How about that? You know, I don't want them Negroes ringing my bell. All right, meet me at the park. And you go to the park, and then you don't stay in the park. You end up somewhere else. But now, clearly, you ended up somewhere else. You ended up dead.
Absolutely having to be very careful. I love that point that Vivian brought up, because even with, and I've been saying that a lot, like now you see elementary kids, like it could be 6 in the evening, 5 in the afternoon, 7, 8 at night, and they just getting on and off of buses, doing whatever in the street. And it's like, we weren't allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. My mother always had that saying, like Vivian said, and it used to get on my nerves. Idle time makes for idle minds make for idle time. No, I'm sorry. Idle time makes for idle minds. I had it right the first time. And her thing was, you better leave this house with a plan. So even if I say, okay, we're going to the park to do what? Who else is at the park? Okay, well, listen, it's too late to play handball. So guess what? That's why this house ended up being the house on the block, because it was my kids are here. Everybody needs to come here. Because unfortunately, you can't control what other people are doing or what they're not doing. You know, you can't control that. So unfortunately, now his parents have to suffer knowing that, you know, he made this decision to go out, and now he's not here anymore. Vivian, is that something that you feel like you need to live by even now as an adult?
Watch the company you keep.
Yes, and like that whole, like, okay, it's worded like that as as an adult, and it's worded different as a child. So even thinking about it from a child's perspective, like, I don't have to have it said to me in the adult way, but it's like, yeah, I really need to live by that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. For us as adults, it's like I don't got time to just be hanging around people that ain't got nothing substantial to do. Like I just don't have the time. Like I just have too much to do. I don't have time to just be lollygagging around. I need to be with
Mhm.
like-minded people that's going to keep me on track, that's going to challenge me, that's going to call me out when I'm doing something wrong. I don't have time to just be chilling with people just to just be chilling with people. Like we even with my own family. Like when I'm with my sister, I'm like, can we talk? Can we do something? Like, how's your day going? What has God convicted you on lately? Like, have you had any new revelations? Like, let's make this time. Like, yeah, we drive into mommy's house, but let's make this time meaningful. I don't have time to just be wasting like that. So yes, even as an adult, I stand by that. Make sure you watch the company you keep. And if you're leaving the house, you're leaving the house with a plan. All that old stuff that we used to fight against as kids, I get it now. I get it.
Absolutely. Brother Al, are you able to speak? Because I would love to hear real quick with you working in the school with these teenagers, how you see all of this, like before it gets to this point. All of the, oh, I'm chilling with this one, I'm chilling with that one, I'm in cahoots with this one, and how y'all in this, you adults in the school are trying to get them to understand this could be the end result. God forbid.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I talk to these kids constantly, and it's so bad because social media, aka the demon, they got these kids, man. They look online, and it's terrifying. You know, these kids. I see these kids look, and every time I see something new, I'm like, where did you get that from? Oh, well, we saw it on TikTok. So everything that come out, they jump on the bandwagon and they doing it. All type of challenges and stuff. And I tell the kids all the time, yo, just be yourself. Just be yourself. Your company. You show me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. I tell people that all the time. I can look at your friends and tell you the type of person that you are. You know,
Mm,
get some people you're gonna grow with. You know, honestly, for me as being an adult, you know, being on the Do Time show with you guys, you know what I'm saying? It helped me step my game up with more studying on the Bible, learning the word more, because I'm hanging around you guys who know the book, you know, and I wasn't the greatest. I'm still not the greatest, but I'm way better than what I was because I said, okay, I'm gonna be around these people. I need to know this word. I need to know some things, you know. But these kids and majority of the kids are in gangs. It's crazy. It's just insane. It's bad time.
mm. You know, but Brother Al, you just said something, and it goes along with our focus on, well, all health this morning. But this morning we gave the tips for maintaining your spiritual health, and you said social media, aka the demon. So Vivian, we may lose you first. What do you think? Do you think social media isn't, can, or can be beneficial to our spiritual health?
Yes, it can be. You have to utilize it properly. I talk all the time about the algorithm because just for an example, the things that I see, my husband doesn't see because the things that he's viewing and liking and sharing, they're feeding that more to him. So if you're utilizing social media properly, it can help in your spiritual health. But you have to make sure you're following the right type of people on there. You have to make sure you're engaging with the right type of content. You have to make sure you're sharing the right kind of things, and then it can be beneficial to you. But if you're on there and the influence that it has on you is demonic, then it's only going to hurt your spiritual health.
Mm, good points. Good points. Thank you. If we don't get to come back around to you for the next round, thank you so much for being on with us this morning.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
day, guys.
you. You too. You too. Pastor KL, what are your thoughts on this whole social media is the demon? But do you think it isn't, can, or can be beneficial for our spiritual health?
Well, it definitely can. I mean, even me myself, if you go out on my page, every day I put a post. I put a positive post as a spiritual post. If that's what you're looking for, that's what's there. Remember, I always say that the devil is never going to attract you with something that you don't like. So if you like booty shorts, everything in your news feed is gonna come up booty shorts. If you like ratchet folks fighting all the time and McDonald's and Wendy's and just out in the park, you're gonna see that. Whatever you start watching, that's what the devil is going to infuse on your level.
Right.
But you got to be able to resist the devil. You talked earlier, in simulation of that. When you resist the devil and he shall flee, it does not mean that you get away or you run away from the devil. Resist the devil means stand flat-footed up against the devil and make a stand for something. And he's got to go the other way. Once he sees he cannot penetrate you or he can't penetrate your mind, he leaves you alone because he can't win with you. He can go to somebody else who he can take down. But if he knows he can get in just a little bit, he's gonna keep messing with you. Them booty shorts are gonna get shorter and shorter and shorter, and then now the booty short people are gonna be talking more and more. And before it was just the booty shorts, but now they having conversations with you. So yeah, you got to be careful of how you deal with it.
The booty shorts people. No, I agree, but it's due time with Pastor Steph. It's on social media. God is utilizing social media to get his word out, for us to be able to network, for us to be able to fellowship and interact with each other, for us to be able to find like-minded people. And this is why it's so important that, as it was stated, we use it properly. And the algorithm is so true. When Vivian was speaking, I was like, yes, because especially on Instagram, I'm on my feed. There's so much Christian content that comes up on my feed. Why? Because that's pretty much what I look for and what I engage in. And those are the type of people I follow. So now that's all that, those sponsored ads and all of that, 9 times out of 10 is Christian based. That's important. And that's also a reminder to you. That should be a reminder to you as to what it is you're watching, who it is you're following. I saw someone post a Facebook story. So you know how you can see like the preview of the picture before you actually click on the story. And it looked like some type of like porn thing. I was like, oh no, I got to unfollow them. Because I don't need someone coming on my page and now seeing that I follow you and these are the type of things you post. Now it looks like I'm in cahoots with that. So unfortunately, if God want me to keep in touch with you, we just gonna have to message each other on Facebook. I can't, no. Especially because of my own struggles I've had in that area. I might as well post it myself. I'd rather post it myself and people see that directly on my page than for it to look like I'm associated with. No. That's just how I am. That's just how I might as well do it myself. I don't need that association from someone else's page. So as far as with something like social media, has everything to do with your intentions, your desires, and we actually went over that this morning with the tips. Overcoming the temptation and the spiritual attacks. We went over that this morning with keeping your spiritual health on point. So we definitely got to make sure we're utilizing this. That's why I personally don't feel like before a certain age, kids should have social media. What you got social media for? Oh, before, back in the day, I got a friend from school. I had their home phone number. Now these kids got their own phone. So now if you don't have their phone number, guess what? You won't be speaking to them outside of school. You have no business. I almost passed out. I saw my niece someone else sent me a screenshot of my niece with a Facebook page about 3 years ago. I almost passed out in Walmart. I was like, oh no. I was ready to call FBI. And I'm not even playing. I was going off. Monty, what are you doing on Facebook? There is nothing for you on social media. There's just you don't have that level of discernment yet to eat the fish and spit out the bones. You don't. No. I called her mother. I called my mother. I was like, don't make. If I gotta report Facebook, forget reporting the page. If I gotta report Facebook, this one won't be having no Facebook account. No. So we have to also take the time. Pastor K, what do you think about, because this is something that doesn't happen in the church enough. Very rarely do I hear anything like this happening in the church. The church is quicker to say, don't do it. It's the devil. It's bad. It's this. It's that. Than to sit and teach what it really is and how to properly use it. What do you think of that concept when it comes to now teaching that to, I can't even say just the kids because some adults need it, but teaching that to the kids and the adults? Like, it's not a cookie cutter. It's not, this is bad, but it's what are your intentions behind it and what are you doing with it?
Well, the term of because I say so don't work anymore. You know, back in the days, the kids would ask you a question and you was almost appalled that they questioned you because I said so. You know what I mean? But now you got to give clarity. You know, the Bible says above all things, get an understanding. You know, you got to give clarity, and there has to be an understanding on why I can't do this. This is in my face all day, and it seems like everybody else is winning. So how do I not take the chance? How you will keep on telling me, you know, we have to stop doing this, but you don't give me a plan. You know, we don't sit down and there's no solution. You don't tell me the whens and the whys. We don't do this as Christians. We just say because the pastor said so or because the preacher says so. But no, the preacher, we have to be able to break down this word as if we're speaking to little children every day. I don't care how old you are. You know, everybody is not that old in the Bible. You know, everybody's not that old in church. You know, when you first come to church at 60 years old, you still childlike. You still on milk. So I can't begin to feed you steak because you 60 and got teeth. You still choking on milk. So I have to be able to sit down and make it plain so that you understand why we don't do the things we do.
Amen. Amen. Brother Al, what is your take on that? You know, from faculty standpoint, where, you know, everything that's presented to the children, or everything the children present to each other and to and around adults isn't bad overall, but it can be if they misuse it or mishandle it.
Oh yeah, not everything is bad, you know. Like you said, I have been online, but I do go, and I've seen some great Christian posters, some great quotes, and I'm like, whoa, that's good right there. Social media, it becomes what you allow it to go. Like you said, if you're looking at a whole bunch of Bible verses all the time, that's what's going to pop up on your feed. And like Pastor Cal, if you're looking at the booty shorts and stuff, that's what's going to pop up all the time as well. You know, and as you were saying, like with the churches has to do better. You know, I'm watching when kids want to know something, you don't explain nothing to the kids, and you know, they don't want to talk about this. Why not? We need to let these kids know, because again, when they trying to listen to their friends don't know nothing or think they know, and then they telling your child, well, no, this is how this should go, and it's dead wrong because you sitting back there, oh, I don't want my kid to know this. I tell you, you would be amazed on the exposure that happened to these kids. Like, I see it and I'm like, where did you see that from? Or where, you know, and the parents and the churches don't want to talk about it. And that has to stop. You know, I remember with me growing up in church, you know, of course it was a different era, but I look back to it, the church always hid stuff. Like when I was working since sixth grade, and I was in sixth grade paying tithes. I didn't understand why I had to pay tithes. Why am I out here working hard, doing construction, and I'm giving the church my money? Mm-hmm. And my dad used to just say, shut up, put the money in the envelope, and take it up there. And I used to be mad. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I said it took a long time for me to get back in the church, because I wasn't explained, you know, things wasn't explained to me. You know, and I didn't understand this and understand that. And like Pastor Carol said, the just shut up and do what I tell you don't work no more. You have to do it differently, you know. And one of the great things in my church, we have a professional counselor, which is needed. We need this in the church. You know, so we got to change that. We got to change that and talk to these kids. You know, people don't want to talk to your children because you're going to regret it if you don't.
Absolutely, absolutely, definitely. There's a lot of talking, but ain't nothing being said, and that's the worst, when people just talking but ain't saying nothing. And now, you know, this father said, he just last month he said to his child, be mindful of who you're hanging around with. So at 14, I couldn't just tell my mother, oh, I'm going to the park, I'll be back. Let me tell you what my mother's her response was. I'd be like, Ma, can I go to a party? Or there's a party in the yard? You could party all in this yard. You got a party in this yard. And I said, oh, Ma, can I go to my friend's house? Oh, your friend live in the yard? You can do everything in this yard. And I used to be like, and every time I begged my mother to go somewhere and do something, I always ended up being able to come back home and saying, I should have just listened to you and stayed home. One time I went out, me and my friend went out on a double date, and the car started smoking. They jumped out the car, didn't say nothing to us. We still sitting in the car. They jump out the car. We get all the way to the movie theater, had to make it back home in the snow on our own. Another time, I begged her to go to this party. We went to the party, got chased home by the boys from the party because they wanted to end up doing some things, and we weren't with it. And every time I begged her, and she finally said, shut up, go, those are the results. So I couldn't imagine at 14 just being able to be like, oh, I'm going here, I'll be back. And this is what these kids are able to do now. And I don't understand the logic behind, I'm going to just let my child do this. And a lot of times it's because, from what I'm seeing and the response I'm giving, it's because I felt stifled when I was their age. So I don't want to do that to them.
Yeah, that is what
Go ahead, Al.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's true too, as well as fear. I've talked to parents, and I'm like, well, why you don't do this? Oh no, we can't do that because they got rights now. The kids got rights. They can call the cops. So a lot of the parents are just scared, and they just allow their kids, because a lot of time when people hear, oh, he's 13, he's 14, but when you look and see what this kid is into, I got a 14-year-old kid here right now addicted to smoking. He's so addicted that he will come out to class and go in the bathroom and smoke and vape. Yeah, he's addicted. And I've been talking with him, because I told people that I'm gonna beat you up, I'm gonna do this. That's not working. I went to his classroom, pulled him out, and took him to an empty classroom. We sat down and I gave it to him real. I said, you 14 years old. You know what you're doing to your body, son? I said, you 14 right now. And I said, you look like you're about 25. He said, oh, you for real with me? I said, yes. I said, you destroying your body. You killing yourself. I said, and most of all, you're hurting your mom. I said, you killing your mother slow. I said, do you realize that stress kills? And I said, that's what you're doing to your mother. So if your mother died, that's your fault. Oh, Mr. B, don't say that. I'm telling you what it is. If your mother dies, it's your fault because you stressing out. You killing your mother slowly. And so he been slacking down, and he agreed to get some help. So we do have like a drug counselor here. So I got him seeing a drug counselor. And you got to be real with these kids. I give it to them raw. But again, people here 13, 14, they think of this little kid. But that little kid is a demon. He carries guns. In games, this little kid is something else. I said, you're on the path to death. And I said, guess what happened when you die? I said, the way you're going to hell. Mr. B, don't say that. And I'm telling you what it is, you're going to hell. I said, see how hot it is outside? Imagine that 20 times. That's where you're going.
Oh my gosh. Pastor KL, you were going to interject on that statement as well?
Yeah, well, first I want to say what Brother Al said. They used to tell my mother all the time, you can't beat the kids. Otherwise, you're going to get locked up. My dad used to say, well, lock me up now because he about to get beat. That's just how it was back in the days. I remember the days when I said, Mom, can I go to Al's house? My mother would ask me a list of questions. Does Al have a TV? Yeah, Mom, I got a TV. So do you. Does Al have a game? Yeah, Mom, I got games. So do you. You know what I mean? So my mother never understood why I wanted to leave my house to go hang out in somebody else's house who had the same stuff that you had. You know, so I wasn't going. My mother didn't play that go hang out in my house. I don't know their parents. I don't know what their parents do. I don't even know if their parents are home. But everything that you're fighting to go to do, you can do in your own house, in the safety of your house.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My mother said her mother always asked her the same thing. And like I said, my mother didn't say that to me. Her thing was, I could do everything in that front yard. Party, whatever, slumber party, you better make it happen in this front yard because you're not going. And like Vivian said, now you learn to appreciate that so much more because now, you know, you get older. So what do you, because again, like I said, this generation of parents, I don't know if they're trying to reinvent the wheel. I don't know what's happening, but overall, again, if the shoe fits, wear it. Overall, is trash because it's like I want to be looked at as authority, but I don't want to give you authority because either A, I want to be your friend, or B, me taking the time to give you that authority means me taking the time. And I'm not necessarily with taking the time. Or C, I was told a bunch of no's and I know how that feels, so I don't want to now tell my child no for whatever. No for whatever for the most part. And I'm sitting looking and I'm just like, but you needed to hear no. And so does your child. So how does this now work to where you think your method is going to be better? Because it's not. We're looking at the result. We're looking, they just arrested 4 teenagers in this fatality of this 14-year-old. They didn't say which one stabbed them. They probably don't know which one stabbed them. But they arrested 4 teenagers. They were only just a few years older than him. It wasn't adults. He was hanging around adults. And these are all a bunch of kids who they were old enough to be able to influence him. Okay, we at the park. Okay, we just chilling. It's good vibes. We're not doing anything. Ain't no rival this, no nothing, whether it was gang related or not. Ain't no beefing. Like everybody just here chilling. They were old enough to now instill that in him so where he would have felt a little more comfortable. Maybe his parents would have felt a little more comfortable. Like, okay, he's going to the park. He's going to be with so-and-so. They're not about any trouble. But he never made it back home. So I don't know. Brother Al, in closing, what would you say to millennial parents about spiritual growth? Because it's not just their spiritual growth that they have to be concerned about. I would say all of us. Like, I'm not a biological parent, but I see how God has entrusted me to be a steward over certain children. And it's helping me to be on point as well. It's not just me helping them. It's helping me to remember what I'm supposed to be doing for me and for them as well. But what would be the number one tip? That's it. What would be the number one tip you would give a millennial parent in regards to spiritual growth for them and for their child or children?
My first thing would be is get to know your child. Some people feel because I'm a parent and this is my child, I know my child. Get to know your child. Know what's on their mind. Pray with your children. Don't just pray for them, but introduce them slow because some of these kids, they don't want to hear nothing about God, this, and that. From what they might have saw on social media, what they might have heard from their friends. So, number one, get to know your child. Know what's on your child's mind. Get to know them. And then start slowly but surely introducing them to God. Hey, baby, you know what, you get ready to go out? Let's just pray real quick before you go out. Just for safety, so that you're safe. And then just start doing that, and then getting your child used to you saying it before your child go out. Oh, you know what? You forgot. Dad, you forgot. We usually pray before I leave. And that will happen if you put that in there. And you ain't got to go to a long, drawn out prayer and go into a sermon. You know what I'm saying? Hey, listen, we're going to do this real quick and we're going to ask God to keep you safe because so much going on in these streets. and you do a quick little prayer, and that child go on his way. And after a while, like I said, you instilling that in, and just keep doing it and building it, and you'll see it different. Stop trying to be your child friend. Stop trying to be scared, or I can't do this, or this is. I heard some parents say, "Oh, this is what the kids wearing today." Okay, so what? But my child not gonna wear it. So you gotta put the rules and put your foot down. This is what's gonna happen. So that's why I would say start from there.
Absolutely. Thank you. Pastor KL, what would be your top spiritual growth tip for millennial parents?
All right, so help me out, Shontyce. So I'm old. Are you the millennial?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I know who I'm talking to. All right. So a lot of times, me, I don't know what I am. I'm old. I ain't a millennial. Gen X? Okay.
Yeah.
So the Gen X people will say, I'm not going to be like my parents because they were too rough. And then we wind up being just like our parents. We wind up saying and doing the same things our parents did. And sometimes we feel guilty because we didn't want to do that. But what I would say to you millennials is, I like what Al said about get to know your child. But before you get to know your child, get to know God. Put God first. Because once you get to know God and God understands you and you understand God, then God will give you the discernment so that you would understand your child and know what your child is doing. You can't introduce someone that you don't know. So we're talking about God and we're talking about going to church, but you are far from him. This is something that you heard about. Unless God is the focus of your household. And understand this, ladies, even if you got a man in your house and he's your boyfriend, he's not the head of the house. The only head of the house is the husband. And the husband is only the head of the house if he follows God. So you have to understand all of this stuff, and it has to line up. When my boyfriend said this, but he's not the head. And even when you guys become married, if you're the only one going to church, if you're the only one that's praying, if you're the only one who knows God, then I'm sorry, lady. I'm sorry, husband. You are the head of the house. And until you understand the dynamics of everybody's position, the dynamics of what God has for you, you will never be able to raise your child. You have to listen, the reason why we do baptism and the reason why we do all this stuff is we give the child back to God. And we have to believe that God knows what he's doing. And you are just borrowed help. Just understand that you are just borrowed help. He just allowed you to push it out. He just allowed you to carry it. He just allowed you to take care of it. Yep. But God is in control. But you have to let him be in control.
Woo. Woo. What a way to close that down. Thank you so much, Do Time Crew, for being on this morning. Thank you so much for your tips. We can add that. Katie, make sure you add those 2 tips, Brother Al and Pascal's tips, to the list from this morning for spiritual growth. But thank you, gentlemen, so much for being on. And pray you have a blessed day.
So since I engaged, I want my shirt. I'm engaged.
Have a good day. You're going to get your shirt. Have a good day. Oh my goodness, those were some amazing. I hope y'all wrote those down because I need to make sure I tap back into Kenny later on. I couldn't take notes this morning. We're going to get into our benediction. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 31. So then, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of our great God. Again, when we focus on our spiritual health, we are focusing on everything that helps us to stay in alignment with what God has for us. Everything that we do, everything we eat, everything we drink, every move we make, every decision we make, every desire we have, every intention, every plan, God knows our hearts, as wicked and deceitful as they are. Only he can discern them. He knows what's stemming from our hearts. That's why he knows our desires and our intentions and our plans. And that's why he tells us to check them with him. Because we can try to lie to ourselves and say, that's not what I meant. That's not what I want to do. One of the switch tips God gave us was be honest with God. You will not be condescended to, meaning God will not talk down to you because you're telling him something crazy. He's with it. He's for it. He's built for that. There is nothing too big, too crazy that we can present to him that will have him say, I can't handle that. I'm good. Or that's just too much. I'm good. Not the God I know and serve. And that's why he's God. That's why he's matchless. And when we talk about these, you know, my niece, she's God spares, this coming school year, she'll be starting middle school. And me personally, I've been having to get mentally and emotionally and spiritually and physically too, but mainly those three, prepared for her to attend middle school, because I know what middle school meant when I was going to middle school. That was back in 96, 97, versus now in 2025. School is not what it used to be. Not only that, the school structure isn't what it used to be. Now you got high school students, you got 17 and 18-year-olds walking into the same door as 11 and 12-year-olds. Who sat at the conference table and said this makes sense? I don't know, but not enough parents are speaking up, because I am definitely one that is ready to sit at the petition table and with the picket sign and be at the PTA meetings to be like, dismantle this. Go back to where the elementary schools are for the elementary age students, the middle schools are for the middle age students, the high schools are for the high school students, colleges are for whatever ages past 18 and up. Stop integrating. There is a reason why things are separated. You have this 14-year-old who was chilling around 17-year-olds. Even though it's only 3 years, that is a huge difference. Now, I know some 17-year-olds can act like 14-year-olds. I know some 14-year-olds who can act like a mature 17-year-old. However, it doesn't change the trajectory of the ages. 17 years, you're a veteran teenager. 14, you're just entering teens. So if you're behaving and living life the way you're supposed to, the experiences are not the same. Your understanding is not the same. Your desires are not the same. Your plans are not the same. 17, you're about to start planning for adulthood. 14, you're still a child. You're still a child of 17. But again, priorities are different. We're not teaching these kids enough. We're not investing in them enough. Why? Because we're not investing in ourselves enough. And until we invest in our spiritual health, we are not making the investment in ourselves, despite what you think. I don't care how many kids you got, how much money you make, how many jobs you can hold down, how many houses you have, how many trips you can go on, even though half the time you're using your rent money to do it. I don't care what accomplishments you feel you have made, until you are willing to sit at the feet of Jesus and say, I am willing to be teachable and humble enough to invest in you the way you're invested in me. He's invested in us more, but to invest in my spiritual health along with you, God. You are not a mature person. So just like Pastor KO said, I cannot offer my child something that I don't know. This is why it's gotten to the point, once upon a time, okay, the parents may not have wanted to go to church, but they'll send the kids. They are so gun-ho about not even sending their children. You want to know the main reason why? Let me let you know the main reason why. Because if I send you, you're going to learn. And now you're going to come home challenging me. I ain't with it. I'm not with it. So to keep everybody safe from me being challenged, ain't nobody going to church. That is not the remedy. Because the more you keep yourself, you're being charged for keeping yourself, and you're being charged for keeping your kid away. Anytime you don't make it your business to make sure your child is in church where they're supposed to be, you're being charged for that. So now it's not only your blood on your hands, it's your children's blood on your hands. Especially because they're not old enough to make decisions for themselves. They are under the subjection of whoever is governing them. So as Pastor KO said, on earth, God has chosen you to govern them. And I know parents who have had their kids stripped from them because they were not governing them the way God needed them to. So God said, okay, you're not going to do with them what I need you to. I'm going to just have them go back to where, and you claim where they came from was so bad. But how much better was it with you? You weren't doing what God needed you to do, not what you wanted to do, not what you felt like you needed to do, but what God needed to do. And that's the same thing we do with ourselves. We try to govern ourselves according to what's comfortable, according to what fits our understanding, according to what makes sense to these streets. These streets are so retarded, but yet we still try to fit the mold of what these streets say, how they move. Stop. This is why our spiritual health is trash. And until we, hold on real quick. Let me read over these tips again, because until we build our relationship with God, live in alignment with God's will for our lives, invest in our spiritual growth, live a godly life, and overcome spiritual weakness, we ain't doing nothing. We're not doing nothing. So let's make sure that we are taking the mind that God has blessed us with. He's blessed us with a free mind. Let's not use that freedom to fulfill our own will, but to fulfill the will that God has for us. Okay? You've been watching It's Due Time with Pastor Steph. Catch us live every single Monday through Friday morning. Oh, wait, hold up. We got a last minute. Yes, Pastor KL, yes. Catch us live every Monday through Friday morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Coach for Christian Life Facebook page, and right here on A Closer Walk Media Network YouTube channel. Make sure you press and hit that subscribe, that notification bell, because listen, after last night and this morning, it's proven that God just has these ministries just spewing out so many different things that's promoting him and the lifestyle he needs us to live, whether it's about him directly or indirectly. Either way, it's about him. So make sure, because we're not always gonna be able to tell you when something is coming up. So unless you hit that subscribe and that notification bell, you're not going to be notified every time we go live, because we're always going to go live right here. Okay, make sure you're taking the time to focus on God, focus on things that are above, not on things that are on the earth, because it only serves as a distraction. Okay, make sure you remember that prayer changes things. Make sure you contact Pastor Steph, hit her up, Coach for Christian Life page, tell her that you love her, you miss her, you pray that she's doing well, she's traveling safe, and that she's absorbing everything she needs to at this conference. This is like her time to get from God and just chill. She loves this time. So we're thanking God that he's blessed her with this opportunity again. But until tomorrow, God spares, where it's Freestyle Friday, it will be with me again tomorrow morning, God spares, where we will indulge into our celebrity news. And Freestyle Friday always entails the men, so we will have Brother Ainsley, Pastor KL, Brother Al on with us tomorrow morning, maybe even Pastor Jeff, more than likely. So make sure you tune in. Again, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Until tomorrow morning, guys, again, make sure you focus on God today. Make sure you do something, make the moves to invest in your spiritual health. Okay? Until tomorrow morning, guys, God bless. I love you.